Your Town Matters is funded by the Government of Canada through the Local Journalism Initiative and supported by Cactus Media, Canada's independent community television association.
Welcome to Your Town Matters. I'm Natalie Sturgeon. My guest today is the mayor of the town of St. Andrews, Brad Henderson. Welcome to the show.
Well, I appreciate you having me to kick off a kind of a new year, first one we've done this year.
Wonderful to have you here. I'm going to start with the Wharf. You and I have discussed this. It was a lengthy discussion at council. Can you update us on sort of where things stand at the moment?
Yes, so right now the municipality is forced to mitigate habitat. So what that basically means is we had a design for the St. Andrews Market Wharf that we took to the community. It was overwhelmingly, I guess you could say, supported by the community members. It was the number one option by a long shot, council's preferred option. So we selected a plan, and right before we were about to go out through the process of putting out for tender and getting different quotes, we were told that DFO did not approve it. And the reason is because we are expanding the footprint on the beach, taking away fish habitat, so we have to replace that. So as simple as a process that may or may not sound like, it is a costly process. Basically, the land that we're taking away, we have to provide somewhere else, and that's through a conservation effort. The unfortunate thing is there is no project that DFO recognizes within our municipal boundaries, so we're forced to do a project outside of St. Andrews. And the most cost-effective one that they are aware of in the region is one in Campobello Island, but it would still cost the taxpayer of St. Andrews $300,000 to do. Now, why would we spend the $300,000? Because if we don't expand the footprint on Market Wharf here in St. Andrews, we have to have a longer wharf jetty. It'll actually increase the project cost by about $1 million. So you're down $700,000 if you don't do the project and the municipality just pays for it. And the reality is you might think about waiting until a better project comes along, maybe something within your municipal boundaries, but we have a shot clock for our funding partners with the province and the federal government. We have an election coming up. If we don't spend the money this year, it's off the table, and there's no guarantee that we get it back. And we have an aging wharf that has a weight restriction on it. We very possibly, if we don't get it done this year, may not have the funds to basically replace it. And then you're talking about patch job repairs that will probably cost the municipality close to those $2 million, which was our investment that we had to do in order to replace it. So I guess it's been described all around the council table as a no-win. In a project worth this much money, a no-win doesn't feel good at all. But with that being said, we're going to look at this proposal with Campobello. We're going to bring the agreement back to council. In the meantime, we can still go out to tender for the project. It can all happen at the same time. And then what we'll get is a real snapshot of what this project looks like, what did the Wharf quotes come in at, and make a decision based on that. So it's a very complicated process. In some ways it seems simple, but some ways it's complicated. I just can't think of any project that I've done in my municipal 9 years experience that has a complication like this. It's if you deal with wharves and oceans, it's quite a normal process, but municipalities don't always have to deal, considering that most wharves are federally funded across Canada and certainly in this region. We're rare that a municipality has to do this.
And Councillor Jamie Hurdle made a very interesting point when he was making his comments. He said, you know, the message that we heard was that people can't imagine St. Andrews without a wharf. So I guess how important is it to the fabric of this community that you do make sure that it is available to people to use in some form or fashion?
And that's what it fundamentally comes down to. Do people want a wharf or not? If we want a wharf, this is the process we have to do. And I don't like how we got to it. I don't like the advice that we received for our engineers. Council multiple times clearly asked them, is this a concern? And we were told no. Now, in their contract, are they legally obligated for the decisions made by other levels of government? No, they're not. See, that's where people are like, well, why don't you go after your engineers? They're not responsible for their decisions. They made their professional opinion that they don't think it's needed, but their contract clearly says they're not responsible. But back to the original question is, at the end of the day, the residents that elected all of council really does expect them to figure this out and have a way for that market wharf to continue. There's been economic impact study done for the wharf in the past. Everyone knows how many people come to St. Andrews to watch whales, even just get an ice cream walk, and you're St. Andrews by the sea. To take that asset away from our downtown, I think it would seriously have big consequences on our whole experience when you come to St. Andrews. But on top of that there's the other layer you got to consider is we're having this much trouble to afford the approach of the wharf. What happens a few councils from now when they have to fix the end of it? Like, are you putting kind of bad money after bad money, knowing that at the end of the day, when the federal government made this little community take over that wharf, is it financially feasible for us to continue to fund it? That's going to have to be a decision of a future council, because again, the public made it perfectly clear that for the approach, they want us to do it.
Yeah, so I guess, is there a situation or a scenario where you don't and you close off the wharf entirely?
Well, for this particular council, if we go to basically call it out to RFP or tender, we get all these quotes and they come back at $3 million higher than what we anticipated. Our funding partners don't fund that extra $3 million. Then you've got a $2 million project for the taxpayer of St. Andrews that's now $5 million. And I really don't think this community can afford that. So we will have to have conversations with our government. I can't see this council go ahead. I'm hoping it comes back. Although it's a very significant project, the reality is that people that do this day in and day out, bringing in fill and stuff like this, by their standards, that they build bridges and stuff, it's not as complicated to them as it is to us. But again, we're a community of under 3,000 people trying to have, you even talk about the arena. I love the arena. I can't see a day in which we don't have it, but it's a huge facility. But a little tiny community that have these assets, it's really hard to wonder with the rise in cost today and plus the pressures of money now expected to go to regional service commissions and that. You got to wonder when enough's enough. And right now, without fiscal reform, the only way the municipalities can fund this stuff is all through your property tax. So you can see these conversations are all intertwined. And if you look at even asset management for municipalities all across this province, the roads and infrastructure we have in place, water lines, sewer lines, is the replacement value of all these are beyond what everyone thought. When we used to build a road, you'd never think of when you had to replace it. There was no asset management. But if you look at how many kilometers of roads and pipes and things that St. Andrews has, and municipalities all across Canada, how they pay for it in the future, it's a really scary thing. It really is.
Hypothetical, if you had fiscal reform and more pots of money to pull from, would this be as difficult a situation, or do you think you'd be able to maybe pull it from somewhere else?
It wouldn't be. If you look at, all across the world at different ways in which municipalities are funded, there's even just 1% of HST, goes towards municipalities, then that's huge revenue streams for municipalities to have the assets that we have in our communities. And it's very obvious that more responsibilities are being unloaded onto municipal governments. Well, if you're going to give them more responsibility, you need to give them more funds to do so, because it's not fair to the residents of St. Andrews to expect them to keep paying for more and more and more through property tax. It's not right. And I will say that during the provincial election process, there was various promises made by all of the different parties that were at the leadership debate. I attended the session in Fredericton, and Susan Holder, Premier, said that she will be addressing it. And she even talked about an interim measure very quickly when the debate was happening. So I look forward to seeing what comes of this. In reality, when you did municipal reform, fiscal reform should have happened at the exact same time. This wait and see and give you new services without new revenue, it's not fair to the taxpayers. It's not at all.
So sticking with the infrastructure theme, I'll go quickly to the water consumption policy. Can you explain to me sort of what councillors and the town were receiving in terms of complaints about this new way that you're measuring consumption of water?
Yeah, I can even use myself personally. I don't mind at all. It's probably better to use myself personally than someone else. So the whole idea around our water is we used to have flat rate billing. It was like a bucket. If you're between this and that, it's this much. Almost everybody fell within this bucket. So whether you were a senior citizen living on your own in this community, whether you were just a resident that came here in the summers only and only stayed for 3 weeks and your place wasn't used the rest of the year, you'd be paying the exact same as I would as a family of 5. And that's not right. A senior citizen should not be paying the same as I should be paying when my washing machine never stops. My oldest son takes long showers and my middle one takes even longer. We run out of hot water almost every day, but that's a whole other show. But what I'm saying is we use a lot of water. I have an outdoor skating rink, right? So I use a lot of water. I should be paying more. And the other thing too is we know that conservation of water is an important thing. So if your grass is all, dry and you run a sprinkler all summer, you don't pay anything extra. That's not a good thing for our lakes or water sources. It's not the right thing to do. So we knew we needed to make a change. The previous council had a consultant come in, did an analysis and said, this is a system that works in other areas. They strongly recommend that we switch to this system. I don't think one thing we understood is how big the implication was going to be. In my case, I knew it was going to go up. I didn't know my water bill was going to over double. And the communication that kind of came out when reaching through to the municipality was that it will go up, but the extent of what it did for some residents, not all. Some had significant decreases, as they should. But for some people that might have an Airbnb, I know one case where it tripled for them. And our communication was we told them that it wasn't going to double. Well, I guess we were technically right, it tripled. But so I think where we're at right now is we passed a policy where the CAO kind of can do a one-time adjustment for people to help them in this transition. The other thing too is if you have a broken, maybe a water line in your backyard, not talking this bill, but I mean in the future, you may not even know it's happening, and then to get a bill for $5,000 for your water, I think we can all agree that's not fair. It is important to note that all that water that goes at that line, though, has been treated. There's been things that the town has had to put into it, so there is a cost. But there needs to be some type of mechanism where the CAO can look at case-by-case basis and one time make an adjustment, and that's where we are right now. I give the example of myself paying double. I use over double the water of a senior citizen. I do. So is it fair? Probably, right? So, but giving people enough notice of how big it is to adjust their budget, even their consumption. Maybe I wouldn't do an outdoor rink, right? Because it's costing me too much. I got to weigh that all out. But you got to give people the opportunity to adjust, and that's kind of where we are right now. So, is it the right system? Yes, but is there going to be growing pains with it? Yeah.
Well, and I guess you couldn't have foreseen the backdrop of NB Power bills also kind of going a little bit haywire. But I guess in an age where affordability is becoming harder and harder, how important is this policy to ensure that people who may not have the financial means can continue to consume water that is a basic right in our society?
It is. So there is a trade-off. I will say that I'm sure the municipality will work with anyone that if they come forward and say they're having some financial difficulty. I don't think we're going to necessarily shut water off anytime soon. I know there's some people that have bills that go back. So that policy will have to be looked at as well. So I totally understand that, like, everywhere you look, bills are going up. I can actually see, and I'm sure you can see, and everyone can see, whether you're living paycheck to paycheck or you have disposable income, even your disposable income is shrinking. And NB Power obviously being investigated is a good one, and I'm actually looking forward to seeing the results on that as someone who didn't put up as many Christmas lights this year. But from a municipal standpoint, is we are aware that of the hardships of people. Probably a good example is the tax bills. Now, some people's tax bills went up, but we had just over 3% growth in new construction in St. Andrews. We decided that that's how we're going to grow our tax base, and we adjusted the mill rate to offset all the increases that you're seeing. So as much as it's tempting to take as much revenue as you can because you've got all these things you have to pay for, how much can one family or one individual pay right now? I think that's up for discussion. But the reality is on the water bills, you could talk about the town debt for operating. The one budget that really keeps me up at night is actually our utility, our water. if you look at the cost of producing water and the infrastructure around it, the revenue in which we are taking in right now is not a sustainable amount for what we're required to do in order to provide that water. There's obviously more and more regulations that the province is requiring us to do. There's new technology costing more. So the cost of water is getting higher and higher. And if we don't figure a way in which that system pays for itself, or at least there's another government program to help pay for it, you're not allowed to take operating funds from the town and put it into the utility. They've got to be standalone. They're regulated that way. We need to figure that one out for the long term. Is it going to be this council? Probably not. But this is a big help. Our overall revenue is going to go up a little bit by this. But again, some people's it's going to go up significantly, like me. Some people it's going to go down. But one thing's for sure, it is a more fair system. That's for sure. And it does encourage conservation.
Right. And it's good that you point out that it kind of has to pay for the infrastructure in order to deliver that water, because that infrastructure does age and degrade over time. So how important will that extra little bit of money be to helping that infrastructure? You had a failure at the treatment facility just a few months ago. Yeah,
it's where that was kind of a one-off where the sensor never picked it up. But you are seeing it. I won't signal out any communities, but you are seeing it communities around us where the infrastructure is failing more often. We've been fairly aggressive on it. But with that being said, is like you are playing a little bit of a dangerous game when they tell you your useful life of this pipe's 40 years and it's 50 years old. Any given day that could be disrupted. I'm not saying it's the reason, but we had a pipe out on the 127 that just unfortunately just I don't even know the term, but it was essentially exploded. It leaked, and the neighbors in the area were without water for a little way. So the more you play this game of not keeping up with your infrastructure, the more these surprise line breaks are going to happen, right? So there is a balance there, but in the same sense, you know, you hear a useful life, you're told if something's 25 years and you know it lasts 40, if you're keeping everything up to date at 25 years, it's going to cost the taxpayer more money. So there's a bit of a game of how long you allow a pipe to be trusted. And of course, I won't get into health concerns on, you know, older line versus a newer line. I don't know about you, I'd feel a lot better drinking out of a newer line, right? And I think that goes anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. So I think you're seeing more and more municipalities, again, same as the asset management I talked to, the water is even worse, where what you can bring in for revenue isn't even close to what it costs. And we're trying to figure that out, and every municipality across Canada is too. Mm.
And I want to touch quickly on the fire truck.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot about it at council. Where is the fire truck, and how long do you anticipate you'll need to wait for it?
I'm told that maybe even if you're watching this now, it might be in town. I was told February 3rd was the absolute latest. So what happened is, as part of the package that you buy to get a fire truck, is 2 individuals from the municipality are allowed to come down and inspect it. Obviously, we had 2 senior fire officials, our chief, Kevin Terrio, as well as lead fire investigator for the province, Jeff Cross, went down. They looked at it, the truck. It's where you kind of give those final alterations to it. So there was some minor alterations made to it. They're being up to date. And then they deliver the truck. We don't go down and drive it. They deliver it to the community. So I haven't got an official date as of the time of this filming. I would say that it could come anytime. I'm just told no later than February 3rd. That's my son Tristan's birthday, so you know, what a present would it be to say I got him a fire truck, even though it's not really for him. But
I mean, maybe they'll let him sit in the driver's seat.
And if you remember at CHCO, I had fire chief of the day.
Yes.
I've already promised Wilder Collier a private tour, because if he's a fire chief, he should also inspect it.
Correct.
Before it goes to the public. So we've got a couple quick things we need to do to get it from the market, but I'm really excited. I just think on that note is on the previous council, I was a member of the previous council, we got a letter from all of our firefighters. They I think all signed it. They responded to a fire at the Algonquin Hotel where they were literally putting ladders on top of that roof. Could you imagine being on a ladder on the top of that roof? Where they actually felt like they weren't safe, and they said that this truck would make them obviously safer. I also was at the Cottage Craft when that fire happened. It was the fire trucks were making very little progress on that. And then the aerial truck came in from the ladder truck came in from Blacks Harbor, and it knocked it down in a hurry. We've had several fires, the Red Herring this year. Even Kira, which is a big multi-structure building, had a fire in the basement. Luckily was contained quickly. that ladder truck can't only save lives, but if you think about a fire in the downtown, it might be the difference between losing a whole block or putting it out. So it's a great investment, and I'm a big believer in the people that are volunteering, I actually sign their checks. They make $1 an hour. Our fire department, honestly, when I did their hours, it's about $1 an hour they do for all their hours. Like if they're asking you for something to make their job safe, I think as a municipality, we have an obligation to do the best we can to make sure they are safe. And I hope that the volunteer firefighters and the fire chief feel how supported they are by this council. And it doesn't just go back to the Stein Lake fire, which we were all reminded how important they are. They were the ones the first night that kept us safe. Weekly, sometimes daily, they're doing things to keep our community safe. And I think it's a small investment into the safety of our community. And do I think over the life of this asset will it probably be the difference between saving a life? I wouldn't be shocked if it is. So that's a good investment for the community.
Well, this is kind of a double-barreled question, but in getting that fire truck, you're also getting more infrastructure that's multi-story. I know there are houses that are multi-story, and it would help with those as well. But I'm thinking about the Compass building. I'm thinking about that crane down on Water Street. These are all buildings.
Maybe the first ever crane.
I was just about to
another
ask
show.
But this multi-story infrastructure is going to be something that I would assume that this fire department hasn't really had to handle outside of the Algonquin. So how critical is it to have that piece of equipment when you're trying to develop, bigger apartment buildings, bigger structures?
It is. Like the fact that it can get above it and knock down flames, or get up there just to help someone down. That could be the difference right there. So, right now in the municipality, you're kind of limited to 3 stories. There is conversation about 4 stories. There's some developers that are hoping for it in the future that council will have to discuss. I don't really anticipate us ever having skyscrapers because that would take away from the uniqueness of town. But one thing's for sure, we do need more apartment buildings. We know that. Look at the one that just filled, like 42 units. Those are 3 and 2 bedroom and 1 bedroom. It filled like that. So there is a demand for that. And the more large buildings like that you have, let's not forget about, we've got great structures like Huntsman Marine Science Center. We've got the biological station. We've got the NBCC. This vehicle will be a lot more impactful in fighting fires. So for being a small community, we have some major infrastructure that this can help for. So you are right. If I'm in an apartment building, that ladder truck, I would be glad to know is in the community. And I don't even know if it has any impacts on insurance rates yet. Even is that something that can be looked at? I don't know. I just know that the proximity of fire station is to your home is a relevant question. But the more success we have, obviously, fighting fires is the more, at the end of the day, the community's safer. And an investment like that is needed. The other thing, too, is if you look at what needed to be replaced anyway, we were going to have to spend $600,000 on a regular tanker. So when you think about all these factors, that's why it was an easy decision and one of the first decisions this council made. We're kind of seeing now, our first year of council, all these things become a reality. Like, we talk about Compass Housing. It took multiple years to become a reality. It now is. Fire truck, multiple years, it's a reality. So it's kind of those early seeds that you plant. You're starting to see the rewards of them now. But with that comes a cost.
And we'll do a quick shout out to Kevin Terrio, who was just recognized by King Charles. It was mentioned at council, but I'll let you maybe I say a few words about that as well.
Yeah. So it was the King's Medal. Essentially, I believe MP John Williamson selected them. In St. Andrews specifically, so did John Matheson, so Archdeacon from the Anglican Church. He's done a lot in the community. And then my very own Deputy Mayor, Kate Akagi, who I don't know if people know about Kate Akagi, but she drives almost 40,000 kilometers a year for Charlotte County Dial-A-Ride. That's just her volunteering her time. Like, think of how much time that is in the car driving people to appointments. So the 3 of those individuals together, especially Kevin Terrio, who goes above and beyond. We've got him a little bit more support now, but he used to take his pager with him on vacation. Like, he's been so dedicated to this community. We're lucky to have all 3 of those individuals, and I'm glad that our MP, I'm pretty sure he's the one that submitted it, as well as people all across Charlotte County got recognized by it. But it's quite an honor and well-deserved for all of them.
And we'll end on a funner note.
It's all been fun, right?
I want to talk about sports tourism quickly because I know you and I are both big sports fans. There was just a provincial curling tournament here. The U20 is coming. There's been several hockey tournaments, both at different age levels. How do you hope to develop sports tourism in St. Andrews for the shoulder season?
Well, that's a really good question. I wasn't prepared for that one, but it's a really good question. I actually spoke about it at the strategic planning session for the Regional Service Commission. They're talking a lot about plans, but one thing for me when you get into sports is probably the real, there's health benefits, there's all this, but if you look at St. Andrews in the winter, when this community is busy, it's usually because the arena is busy. It doesn't just mean that it's hockey. It could be, power skating, it could be, speed skating, it could be curling, but when the arenas are busy, it's not just a St. Andrews thing. If the Garcelon Center is busy, all the restaurants in St. Stephen are busy, the shops are busy, people are staying here, we're busy. When the Patrick Connors at Blacks Harbor, that arena is busy, St. Andrews is busy, and vice versa. So as much as you want to create new tourism offerings, which I think you should, the easiest, the low-hanging fruit is that we have these great sports facilities all within half an hour of each other, and people are willing to travel here. You just, you put a tournament together and you show a picture of the Algonquin with a water slide. Families will come here, and we're seeing it. So I think to have a more organized approach, like Charlotte County Minor Hockey or St. Croix Speed Skate, they may have their events, but to have a more organized strategic plan of having more events like that, I think that it really could be a difference. And the Algonquin is a major employer. It could help keep people employed year round. They're looking at obviously the spa, but you put in a lot of these sports events, and St. Stephen and Eastern Charlotte benefit from them just as much as St. Andrews. And if you talk about municipal reform and regional service commissions, the more we do together, the stronger we are. That one is a really easy one to get going. And what we're seeing is people, when we have an event, I guess the Ice Dogs is a good example. They have the Veterans Cup November 11th weekend. The Algonquin with 230 odd rooms sold out. So there's more to give. I'm glad you brought that up. I think it needs to be more organized. It's by a bunch of independent organizations, but I think we can provide a leadership from a regional level to make it even busier.
Well, thanks for coming in today. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
My guest today has been the mayor of the town of St. Andrews, Brad Henderson. Thanks for watching Your Town Matters.